Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to just close your eyes for a quick second and picture the Sahara Desert. You're probably imagining, endless dunes of scorching, dry sand, right? Well, wipe that image completely from your mind. Today, we're taking a cinematic journey way back in time, over 94 million years ago, to a prehistoric North Africa that you would barely even recognize. We are heading into an ancient, completely waterlogged world ruled by towering dinosaurs and, incredibly, some of the most massive, totally bizarre crocodilians to ever walk or, well, swim the earth. Now, as we explore this ancient swampland, we're going to be unraveling a literal ecological detective story. Paleontologists call it Stromer's riddle. And the fossil record of this region presents us with just a massive mystery. How on earth did a single ecosystem support so many massive apex predators without them starving to death or, just completely killing each other off? It's a giant puzzle that totally defies our modern understanding of how nature usually balances the food chain. So, the scene of our detective story is the Kem Kem group, which is a geological formation in modern-day Morocco. But back in the Cenomanian age of the late Cretaceous period, we're talking roughly 101 to 94 million years ago, South America and Africa had hardly even begun to break apart. Global temperatures were absolutely soaring, and sea levels were way, way higher. All of this created a lush, flooded system of river deltas inletting from the ancient Tethys Ocean. It was basically a warm, brackish, salty swampland. I mean, it completely shatters the modern desert landscape we see there today.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this flooded habitat was an absolute hotbed of evolutionary activity. Just look at the insane biodiversity here. You had massive meat-eating theropod dinosaurs like Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus. You had the giant long-necked sauropod Rebucosaurus. The skies, totally filled with toothed pterosaurs. And the waters were just teeming with turtles, amphibians, giant sharks, and enormous crocodilians. It was a wet, wild environment absolutely packed to the brim with life.
But here is where we hit our mystery. As this quote notes, the fossil record here is a complete anomaly. You see, in almost every ecosystem, past or present, you need a massive population of herbivores to support just a few carnivores. Think of the Serengeti, right? You've got thousands of wildebeest for every single lion. But in the Kem Kem beds, the giant carnivores vastly outnumber the herbivores. This overprevalence of meat-eaters is the very heart of Stromer's riddle. Seriously, how did they all find enough to eat?
So, the crucial point is that evolution found a workaround, and it's called niche partitioning. This is the ultimate solution to our riddle. Instead of fighting over the exact same prey, these ancient monsters evolved highly specialized physical traits and hunting strategies. They carved out their own specific slices of the ecosystem, using the environment and its resources in completely different ways, which allowed them to peacefully, or actually at least successfully, coexist. To see exactly how this worked, we're going to look closely at the incredible crocodilian diversity of the era.
Section 1. The River Giants. Sharing the waterways.
When looking at the cast of characters sharing these waters, I want you to first think about the number 12. 12 meters, that's nearly 40 feet. That was the staggering length of Sarcosuchus imperator, one of the largest semi-aquatic crocodilians to ever exist. It shared the same broad inland basin during this era, and at that colossal size, it wasn't just a predator, it was an absolute force of nature.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates how niche partitioning works at the very highest level of the food chain. On one side, you have the famous Spinosaurus, a 15-meter bipedal dinosaur. Recent biomechanical studies show it wasn't some deep-water pursuit swimmer, but rather a shoreline ambush predator that waded into the shallows to catch large fish from above. On the other side, you have Sarcosuchus, a massive quadrupedal reptile that patrolled the deep inland waterways. One dominates from the shoreline looking down, the other dominates from the deep water looking up. Same river basin, completely different hunting zones.
Let's move to Section 2, the bizarre Pancake Crocodiles. Ambush and snatch.
Now, what's really wild is that crocodilian diversity didn't just stop with massive size. We see some truly bizarre anatomical adaptations here. Notice the stark contrast in skull shapes and what it tells us about their completely different hunting styles. On one hand, you have Elosuchus, reaching up to 20 feet long. It had this slender, elongated snout, a lot like a modern gharial, perfectly built for quickly darting into the water column and snatching fast-swimming fish. But then, you look at Aegisuchus and Laganosuchus. They went in the exact opposite evolutionary direction. They developed these broad, flat snouts equipped with tiny teeth that looked almost like giant paddles.
Moving right along to Section 3, the terrestrial rat croc.
crocodiles on land.
You see, evolution in the Kem Kem wasn't just confined to the water. Enter Araripesuchus, affectionately known as the rat croc. Unlike the 40-foot monsters we just talked about, this little guy was only about 3 feet long, and its adaptations allowed it to fill niches you might normally associate with mammals today. It had much longer legs than modern crocs, giving it a fully terrestrial lifestyle. Its lower jaw even featured a pair of projecting buck teeth. It was an omnivore, behaving way more like a wild boar or a rat, scurrying through the terrestrial underbrush, rooting through the dirt for shrubs and grubs. I mean, think about that. It's a crocodile, basically acting like a rodent.
And actually, the terrestrial croc takeover didn't even stop there. You also had species like Elosuchus and Eegisuchus. These were land-dwelling crocodilians armed with blunt teeth. Paleontologists believe these adaptations mean they filled the roles of low-level generalist predators and scavengers on land. So while the massive Crocodinosaurus was taking down huge dinosaurs, these smaller land crocs were eagerly scurrying around cleaning up the scraps.
All right, Section 4, a masterclass in coexistence, solving the riddle.
So let's bring it all together. Because when we piece these completely different lifestyles together, the ecosystem suddenly makes sense. It wasn't magic, and they definitely weren't starving. You've got Spinosaurus wading from the shorelines for large fish. Crocodilians is staying entirely on land, hunting giant herbivorous dinosaurs. Laganosuchus is resting motionless on the river bottom as a giant ambush trap, and little Araripesuchus is scurrying through the bushes looking for grubs. This extreme physical specialization completely removed the need for these monsters to compete for the exact same meals. They could all live within a few miles of each other, because they were, quite literally, operating in entirely different worlds.
Which kind of leaves us with a truly fascinating perspective on our own world. We've just seen how a prehistoric swampland engineered this strict niche partitioning to support a towering, monstrous array of hyper-specialized life. It forces us to ask, if it took such extreme diversity and specialization to balance that ancient world, just how fragile are modern, far less diverse ecosystems by comparison? Keep in mind the next time you look at the natural world around you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning everything.